Welcome into hour two. Let's talk a little Carrington Valentine, man. Here's another tweet that went out, and it was by the 33rd team, and I just added a little something to it because I thought it was worth mentioning here. So their original tweet, this is what it said: passer rating allowed when targeted in 2024, and it's talking about the Baltimore Ravens' new cornerback room, okay, or DB room in general. Marlon Humphrey, 58.5. Nate Wiggins, 59.7. Jaire Alexander is now had the third best passer rating when targeted on the Baltimore Ravens team here at a 77.6. Kyle Hamilton, 82.9. And Chidobe Awuzie at a 94.4. The league average passer rating last season, 92.3. So anything underneath 92.3 in passer rating when targeted, you would be considered above average. Now, if we go back to my last tweet there, if I can get it to pull back up here, I added to this Carrington Valentine, who is set to replace Jaire Alexander at the right cornerback position, had a 69.0 passer rating when targeting, significantly better than Jaire's 77.6, with the same amount of targets at 30. According to NFL Pro, they got targeted the same amount of time. So people say, well, he played more snaps, right? Jaire was hurt, this and that, right? It's the same amount of targets. His passer rating when targeted was a 69. Jaire's was 77.6. Both of them finished with 2 interceptions. And in touchdowns allowed, Jaire allowed 2 touchdowns. Carrington Valentine did not allow 1 single touchdown. And, they're kind of running this victory lap, and the 33rd team's pumping it up like, man, look how good this DB room is here with Jaire Alexander's addition. And on the flip side, us as Packer fans are looking at it like, we just got our favorite dog stolen or something. Like Carrington Valentine played just as good as Jaire Alexander last year. And you notice, you look at those numbers and go, it sounds like he played better, Clayton. You could say that, but again, I feel like Ja, if anything, kind of broke off of his assignments from time to time, and Carrington just kind of stayed pat with the assignment that was called. So I want to get your all's take on this.
Anybody who's watched this show more than once knows that I'm the biggest Jaire stan on earth. I've been carrying the torch for Jaire since 2018. And so I don't say this lightly when I say that I believe CV is going to step up. He's going to step into that role, and he's going to solidify his role as a starter in this secondary. It's going to happen. It might not happen right away, but I think somewhere, between opening weekend and, the halfway point of the season, I think we're going to see a lot of CV. Hell, we saw a lot of him last year, to your point, Clayton. We saw a lot more of him than we saw Ja last year, and I thought, Carrington played some really good football. I think, changing the jersey number and going into the year was a, fresh start, new approach for him. And, when Ja was out, he stepped up and basically assumed that he was going to be that dude, and he answered the bell. So I think this year it's going to be more of the same. We should see him take another step. I'm not saying he's a shutdown corner or, anything like that, but certainly a young player in this secondary that you can bank on is gonna make positive steps this year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And like I went over last night, I think it was, reading off all those, there's so many corners in there, right? Like Baltimore has a bunch of secondary players, and just even getting them all on the field at the same time, right? You can throw out numbers all we want, we can go over all this, but there's only 11 guys that are going to be on the field. And if you have that, I think we were talking about, you have Nate Wiggins on the outside, you have Ja on the outside, where are you going to put? You can put Marlon Humphrey in there. You got your 2 safeties. Who's going to tackle them once they get to the second and third level? If you're betting on Ja, we love him, right? But we knew that his tackling wasn't the best. He was just going to kind of steer him towards the middle. If you're relying on him to hold an edge, or if he's going to be your outside container or anything like that, you might need to kind of work the defense around that.
Yeah. Yep. Jacob, you good?
Yeah, I mean, not to completely mimic Tim, but I think that CV really is coming into his own this year. And I think people are going to understand that he is not just a filler guy, that he deserves to be a household name. And I believe what was one of the comments I saw over here, That basically, yeah, like Packers on top of saying, CV has a hell of a personality too. That's a lot. He's a large personality, much like Jair. However, I think that he's younger, he's hungrier, he's more willing to back it up by actually throwing in, a little more physicalness to his game. And I think that we are just maybe scratching the surface of what his potential is. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if he goes out and he puts up a very good performance. Like I'm talking, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Pro Bowl type guy. I think he's that good. I think the defense is. I think Hafley's going to put him in a position that's going to make him get the best out of his potential. And I really do think that the Jair thing had to come down to like you can't argue with me logically and tell me that Hafley didn't just probably say, hey, I can't get much more out of Jair than what we got out of him last year. Like if the guy's not willing to go out and play, there's only so much I can scheme up. And you know what? I'm sick of freaking having my scheme ready to go. And then 10 minutes before the game, I throw the freaking thing out the window. I almost just swore. Oof. I throw the thing out the window. And here we are just playing, and still we were a top 5, top 10 defense in most categories with playing that sort of hodgepodge, never knowing exactly what the hell we're going to do going into a game. So I think this may be a blessing in disguise. Like Tim said, it may be a little rough in the few weeks, but come mid-season, I think that we have ourselves a pretty solidified group with CV at the front.
And there's going to be some people, Emilio, that say like, when it comes to cornerback, you got to kind of throw those stats out the window because a real good corner won't get targeted a lot, right? Like they'll, you know what I mean? That type of approach, right?
Kind of like that, right? Like what?
Listen to this. Jair Alexander only played 347 snaps. Carrington Valentine played 516. Guess how many times Jair Alexander was targeted? And I kind of already told you, but he was targeted 30 times. Carrington Valentine was targeted 30 times as well. Think about that. He played almost 200 more snaps than Jair did last year, and he was targeted the same amount. Teams were not scared to throw towards Jair.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're scared to throw toward Carrington, but if we're going to throw the rest of the stats out and go, yeah, but how often because what that typically means, guys, is when someone is targeted, far fewer times with more snaps, it means their guy isn't open is what it means. And then when you couple that, okay, let's cross-check that. PFF's coverage grade, Carrington Valentine's was a 71, if I remember correctly. So that checks out all the way around. Then you got the passer rating when targeted, the touchdowns allowed, the interceptions. Oh, by the way, people were saying, well, he's going to tackle just as bad as Jair Alexander. He won't put his nose in there either. Guess how many stops Jair had? And again, stops means you made the tackle that prevented them from getting the first down. Guess how many stops Jair had out last year?
2.
Yep, you got it. 2. Guess how many Carrington had?
12.
7.
15.
Damn.
So again, we're not saying that he's going to go out there and play the run like Rob Woodson back in 1999.
Right. Can we talk about that for a second too? Because the same fans that want that DB to lower the boom and make the tackle are the same ones that are upset that Ja's never been the same player since he lowered the boom and blew up that shoulder, right? So let's be real. I'm looking for my CB to play with his brain and then his body second. So if you've got good athletic ability, but you have high FBI and you know where you need to be and you're getting picks and PBUs and you're playing within the scheme, I'll take that over a guy that's willing to just run in there with reckless abandon and just blow up, a hit or something. So just food for thought, man. Play with your feet, your hips, and your head if you're a DB, man. We don't, save the power hits for our safeties and our linebackers and our, D-line group.
Yeah. CJN says, guess how many 100-yard receivers Ja gave up? CS?
I think it's
versus how many 100-yard receivers were against us.
I don't quite understand what that means. Let us know in the chat now that you got us.
You got me intrigued there, CJN, but I'm an idiot, man. You got to really spell things out for me, man. I'm a moron. Yeah, and again, when you look at some people go to just, they'll just go to blanket statistic sites, like a Pro Football Reference or an NFL.com. I like NFL Pro because they break things down with tape, right? And you got to be real careful where you get numbers from. But I was trying to understand what he was asking there. Somebody marked it, so I assumed you guys knew what he meant, but you didn't. So here we are.
I was waiting for him to follow up, but then he didn't, and And it just
I was going to look at hustle plays here too. Hustle plays, Jair had 0 hustle plays. Carrington had 2, so he led him in that category as well. It's pretty wild, man. When you really
younger too. I mean, it all makes sense, right? Younger, healthier. It's just the way of the league. Not for long is what we always reference back to.
Yeah, I love what Drew D said here. I just use whatever stat benefits my argument at the time. That is 99% of the public right there, sir. That's for sure, man. So, yeah, let's see here. United Bates says, how many times a receiver had a 100-yard game versus us that was being covered by Ja versus someone
I got you.
else? Okay, gotcha.
Well, the first game Ja gave up 100, right, to Antonio Brown or to AJ Brown.
Yeah, AJ Brown ate his lunch in that first game. Man. He really. And again,
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
If you were to look at Ja's best game last year, it was Tennessee probably, right, where he had the pick 6. And again, when you see that pick 6, you go, man, what a play. Yeah, Ja, bro, he did not cover. That was not his coverage responsibility. He broke completely off of his deep zone responsibility and jumped around. And if that beats him with a double move, we're talking about the same thing A.J. Brown did to him in week 1, But,
yeah, or if QB, throws that pump fake, you're in trouble. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's see here. CJN said, all year we had 2 wide receivers that had 100 yards receiving against our defense. Ja gave up 1 against the Eagles and didn't play much. Did he have –
You think God never farted?
He may have had limited snaps in that game. I can't remember. It was so long ago now.
But he's saying we only gave up 2 as a defense, right? So that's impressive. And one of them was week 1.
Oh, I see what he said. Overall, didn't.
Right. Yeah. One of them was week 1 with Ja. The second one probably was Keyshawn would be my guess.
Yeah, definitely. And Keyshawn's I'll drop this down now. Again, just wanted to hit on that. Let me see if I can get NFL Pro up here. And let's just take a little bit more detailed look at the secondary from a statistical standpoint. I want to hit the game tape so bad and see those tackles that Carrington made or those stops, but you guys know how that goes. So this is just going to look like a bunch of numbers here, but I'm going to try to cipher it out for you. Like when we go to targets, again, a good indication of how well a person is covering from a cornerback standpoint is how many times they're targeted, right? If they're not targeted much, it means they're covering their guy. Look who got targeted the most for the Packers in the DB room. Keyshawn Nixon with 92, and it wasn't even close. Second was Eric Stokes at 50.
Wow.
Then it was Javon Bullard at 45, Isaiah McDuffie 43, Quay Walker 43, Eric Wilson 37, Jair Alexander 30, McKinney 30, Carrington 30, Evan Williams 29. Look at Cooper's number. People are like, I am not throwing near 56. That son of a gun is
Here's the guy.
So where are those 80 targets going to go? Where do you think they're going to get dispersed? How many of those Hobbs are going to pick up? Is Carrington's number, just taking into account Stokes 50 targets and Jaws 30 targets? You got 80 closing in on 100 targets that are going to get dispersed throughout the secondary now. I hope, Carrington, steps up. Key kind of steps up, but we'll see.
And Keyshawn played left corner from the defense's perspective, not the Madden cam, right? From the defense's perspective. Keyshawn played left corner and Carrington played right corner. I think that's what they're planning on doing. They'll put Hobbs in the slot in the nickel.
And Keyshawn also had that kind of that insecurity, if you will, for lack of a better term, of knowing that if Bull goes down in the slot, I got to step into that slot role again. Absolutely. I think going into this year, Keyshawn knows he's a boundary guy. Right. It's probably him and CV out there, and your slot guys are Nate Hobbs and Javon Bullard. So that might give Keyshawn a little bit of stability to get his legs under him and really lock into that role. And if he shores up that opposite boundary, opposite of Valentine, I mean, we're going to be in business, guys, for sure. Yeah,
so I think Keyshawn will play left corner, right? You'll have Carrington on the right. You'll have Nate Hobbs in the slot. And now the question becomes, when they go to a base, when they go to a 12 or 21 personnel, which corner comes off the field? I personally think right now it's going to be Carrington coming off the field, and they're going to keep Keyshawn out there. I wish that were not the case, but that's probably what it would be. Now, let's say that Carrington just absolutely blows up in training camp and they decide, hey, look, he is going to be the starting outside corner in our base 4-3 defense alongside Nate Hobbs. That means Nate Hobbs would kick out to the left, right? and Keyshawn will go to the bench, and you keep Carrington out there. I hope that's what they do to try to prove, hey, Carrington's the guy until he proves otherwise. Because again, Keyshawn's numbers they're pretty bad. When you look at the passer rating when targeted, it's covered up right now. There it is. 101.2 was his passer rating when targeted. Guys, to put that into perspective, Eric Stokes' was 102.4, right? And again, why did you go get Nate Hobbs? Javon Bullard, 124.5. But how much of that was him as a safety and them attacking him at the safety position, right? And again, it's not to say these numbers are perfect either. There's going to be error even at NFL Pro, but what I like about NFL Pro is all of these numbers, you could just jump in there and watch the tape on each one of these numbers that you can click on. So, let's see what Daryl said. He's mentioned this a couple times here, if I can get the pull up. He says depth is not a problem. They just need to have those rookies run with the vets for a few months, and they'll be good to go. When you think about the depth too, like when you look at the cornerback room, if we think depth for a cornerback room real quick, let me pull up the depth chart so we don't miss anything here real quick.
You ready to go?
So depth chart at corner. Let me drop that comment down now. I feel like I'm playing a Rubik's Cube over here. So Keyshawn Nixon, and then you got Nate Hobbs is how they've got it listed, Carrington Valentine, and then you got Micah Robinson after that. Javon Bullard obviously going to play nickel back there, and they got Kalen King as the backup nickel, which I think Nate Hobbs may indeed end up being the winner there in that battle. Their depth does seem like a little bit of a problem at corner, don't it? What do you think, guys? Do y'all think we got a little bit of a depth problem at corner, or no? Because think about it. Let's say Carrington goes down. Let's say Carrington gets hurt.
Oh, then we have a problem. Yes.
Yeah. Then who's it going to be? Micah Robinson, or is it going to be? You know what I'm saying? I guess if you have one of those guys go down, then Nate Hobbs kicks outside, and you bring Javon Bullard in the slot. Right? That's the goal there. So
Jamal Haddon. Come on now, Kalen King.
Yeah, Kalen King. Yeah.
Dead Fish says, "Where's Bo Melton? Don't you start this again, Dead Fish. Don't you start this." Oh man. So I don't know, man. It's gonna be fun to see how camp unfolds and where these guys kind of fall into place. Prince in the chat says we seem set at slot corner, so the guy to watch for me on the boundaries of backups, Kamal Haddon. I thought he was a mid-round pick, and surprised he lasted till the late sixth. If I remember correctly, we had a little bit higher grade on Kamal Haddon as well. Let me see if I could find him.
I think we did. I agree with Prince there. Like that would be the name you're looking to. Like if we had somebody get banged up relatively early, I'm looking at Haddon and King to step up.
Yeah, I had a 7th round grade on Haddon, so he was a little bit lower than where the Chiefs took him, but obviously the Packers seen it worthy to sign him there.
We're really deep at safety, though. I mean, if you had an injury, you're looking at guys like Omar Brown. You're looking at KT Oladapo. Hell, you're looking at even Evan Williams possibly playing corner in a pinch if you need him to.
Right. Mike Berry said you can always put Travis Glover out there.
Here's a guy.
I've been trying to say that for a long time.
Or even if you're good enough at safety that you take a guy like X, and maybe X has to go play a corner on a Sunday or something, and then you trust Bullard and Williams back there, or Oladapo and Williams or something.
Since you mentioned Oladapo, man, look at Oladapo's passer rating when targeted, 39.6.
Yep.
But he only got targeted one time. It's showing, right? So you got to kind of throw that out. But how many snaps? He ended up playing 64 snaps. Had 4 tackles. Actually had 2 stops, 2 hustle. Both those stops were hustle plays, obviously.
If he gets some playing time this year, man, I'm gonna freak out.
That's the other thing.
So excited.
That's one of those dudes that it's going to come down to him and Zane Anderson as that backup safety, I believe. Of course, Javon Bullard's going to have a say in that too. I know it's a small sample size, but I'm a little sour on Javon Bullard playing safety. I feel like he played better in the slot than safety. I could be wrong, but I don't know. It's just kind of how I seen that last year. When you look at the other guys here, I mean, Cooper is just an absolute dog in coverage, 57.1. My God, man. I mean, just look at how many columns are full here. You know what I'm saying? He ended up with 469 snaps, 55% playing time. He had 180 run D snaps, 77 tackles, 47 stops. Did he lead the team in stops? 47 stops. He led the team.
Dave McDuffie had 45.
Yeah, dude. McDuffie catches a lot of heat because this number right here, 124.1 passer rating when targeted. But in the run, he's a thumper, man. He's definitely a thumper. So
he's also pretty good in that mid-range pass defense. You know, it's when you need him to turn up field and run up field, it becomes an issue. But
yeah,
you know, the swing pass or the screen or things like that, I feel like he's, you know, decent. But Zay McDuffie's strength is definitely the run fit for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of stops, you got Edgerrin Cooper with 47, McDuffie with 45. Now keep in mind, McDuffie had 663. He had 200 more snaps than Edgerrin Cooper and 2 less stops. Like, that's how damn good Edgerrin Cooper was. Quay Walker finished with 711 snaps and only 40 stops. Rashawn Gary, as a defensive lineman, he led all of our defensive linemen in stops with 39. That's what we were talking about with him and his run defense last year. Keyshawn Nixon had 36 stops. I mean, that's something that he did do well when he did play the slot. He's willing to stick his nose in there. Eric Wilson finished with 32. Javon Bullard with 31.
Dog.
Yeah, that's definitely his strength at the slot position, is helping the run fit and kind of playing everything underneath, reading and recognizing and diagnosing those screen passes. Another thing, he's really going to get those smoke screens and bubbles and stuff. Kenny Clark finished with 28 stops. Kingsley Enagbare, 26. TJ Slayton, 24. Devontae Wyatt, 20. So Devontae Wyatt, this is a good way to do this number two. Emilio, do you have a calculator handy by chance?
I do.
All right. Let's see who had the best run stop rate real quick. We'll do this in real time. I want to focus on defensive linemen here. Kenny Clark do 247.
Yep.
Right? And he had 28 snaps. So that would be what, 247 divided by 28, or would it be 28?
8.8%.
Okay, so he had 8.8%. Now let's go to Devontae Wyatt. 101, pretty much 20%, right? Because he had 101 run defensive snaps and 20 stops. That's what, 19.999%, whatever.
Right.
So, again, you say Kenny's run stop rate was 8%?
You said 247 divided by 28, right?
Yep.
Right, I'm sorry, 28 divided by 247. 11%. There we go. Sorry.
Okay, so he was 11 to Devontae Wyatt's 20%. Now,
Right.
keep in mind, Kenny played one tech in the nickel while Devontae Wyatt played 3 and 4 But boys, something that got kind of overlooked last year is Devontae Wyatt played a lot better run defense. A lot better run defense. Oh, you can't say that. PFF had a bad run defensive grade on him. I know. But you want to go look at the stops, we could click right here and watch the tape if you want to. You know what I mean? Like, so that's something. And again, when you look at the numbers and his PFF grade, he led all of our interior defensive linemen with the highest PFF overall defensive grade, right? So that checks the box. The run stops on NFL Pro checks the box. And then what does the front office think about him? Well, they just slapped a 5th-year option on him worth a pretty good chunk of change. So they see the value of Devontae Wyatt. So I think Devontae Wyatt they're seeing him as the 3 tech of the future, what it seems like. And I hope he really, really evolves in that role. Looking at Evan Williams here. Well, let's see. Is there anybody else on defensive line that we're missing from a defensive tackle standpoint? Because TJ Slayton's gone, right? It'd be Carl Brooks, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, or Wooden, if he's been bulking up like they've been saying.
Yeah, Wooden played 85 snaps. So do 12 divided by 85, Emilio. 12 divided by 85.
85. That put him at 14%.
Yeah. Not bad, right? Not too shabby. And then when you look at Carl Brooks, 19 divided by 140, what's the number you come up with?
That puts him at 13.5. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Now, when you go to Evan Williams, passer rating when targeted, only a 67.5. My man, he played some good football, man. Darn good football. He had 20 stops as well. To put that into perspective, he had more run stops than Xavier McKinney, although I think we would agree Xavier played a little more post than Evan did. Evan was kind of in the box around the ball, that type of thing. When it comes to our boy Rashawn Gary, give me a 39 divided by 210, Emilio.
39 to 10. That would put us at 18.5.
His run stop rate was 18%.
Come on now. 1 in 5 plays, he's stopping them.
Yeah, that was, and people are wondering how he made the Pro Bowl. That's his run defense took a step forward big time, man. And then of course he had a 13.4 quarterback pressure percentage. So when look at the pressure percentage. Again, you got to throw some of these DBs and linebackers out with the bathwater because it's going to be overly inflated. So when you get to the actual defensive linemen, Brenton Cox Jr., 13.7%, Rashawn Gary, 13.4%. All right, Lucas Van Ness, 11.2%, Devontae Wyatt, 9.7%, Kingsley Enagbare, 9.4%. And then you got to get all the way down to, I think Aaron Mosby's, he's gone this year. Practice squad, or they'll cut him outright. Because you bring in this new fresh blood, Barron Sorrell. If you're truly looking at Colin Oliver as a hybrid top edge defender / stackbacker, that 8.5% pressure rate is just not going to get it for an edge defender.
Right.
Kingsley's kind of on the ropes there too, man. He really is.
Get ready to go.
Under 10%. I love it too that Kingsley was targeted in the passing game 11 times and he gave up 10 receptions. That's not a good rate there, Tim.
No.
Not a good rate at all. That 55 drop wasn't working in that regard. Was it?
Negative. Yep.
And he was,
That's brutal.
Yeah. All right.
I'm
Anything else?
excited to see. I'm just excited to see some of the numbers, get moved around for playing time and things like that. Just sort of seeing who's out there. I mean, we're going to keep that hockey line, see what the new, D-line coach is all about over there, and kind of just get this team humming.
When you look at yards allowed in the passing game, Keyshawn Nixon, 569 leading the way. The next closest one is Javon Bullard at 385. Then Isaiah McDuffie, 353. Quay Walker, 353. Eric Stokes, 343. Eric Wilson, 327. Xavier McKinney, 275. Carrington Valentine, 262. And Jair Alexander, 244. Now, when you go yards allowed, you want to kind of tie that to snap count. And if you're looking at that and going, man, Xavier McKinney gave up a lot of yards, 275 yards allowed on 1,015 snaps. Pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. So, and then, of course, touchdowns allowed. Keyshawn, I hate to say it, but Keyshawn had a bad year, man. He had a bad year. If he is the starting corner out there to kind of take Ja's place, me no like that, Jan. Me no like that at all. I hope they give Carrington a shot to win that job. I really do, man. So,
what if Carrington and Hobbs win it and Key's the rotator?
Yeah, that's the way I would go, man. I'm telling you. And then when you're in the nickel, you have no choice, right? But here's the other thing too. Like Tim, when we're talking camp battles, think about this. You're trying to identify who are your three corners, right?
Yep.
There is a chance that Javon Bullard. Here's the three-way kind of tie that you got to break. Keyshawn Nixon, Javon Bullard, and Nate Hobbs, right? Is Javon Bullard or is Nate Hobbs so much better on the outside than Keyshawn Nixon that it's a net gain with Javon Bullard kicking to the slot as opposed to – it's going to come down to can Javon Bullard play the slot better than Keyshawn Nixon plays outside? Does that make sense? Where those are the rotating pieces there. It's like, and maybe that is the answer. If you were to go just strictly off the stats alone, Javon Bullard's passer rating when targeted, where you at, sir? I know I've seen it earlier. Javon Bullard was he was 124.5, so he had a worse passer rating when targeted than Keyshawn Nixon, for sure.
Got to work on those coverage skills and ball skills, for sure. That's why I think, having this conversation makes me think all the better reason for a guy like Kalen King to step up and just, make his name known in camp battles. If we get one of these younger corners to step up, it might make things a little easier when we're trying to formulate that lineup. But, I would agree. I think, flip a coin. Who would you rather have in the slot, Keyshawn or Bull? I don't know. I think, honestly, despite the fact that he's, still developing and maybe struggles with some coverage skills, but I'd probably take Bullard over Keyshawn in the slot at this point. So if we're just trying to find our three, who's going to step up?
It's tough, man. Number one Packer fan says, I don't see Nixon as CB1. Sorry, not sorry. I'm with you there, Bub. And I know he said that, and you want him to say that. You want him to want to be CB1, but there's nothing I'm seeing that would suggest that he can be. Chuck Goodman says, I've never seen the hype of Nixon playing outside. I always thought he wasn't very good. I seen it a little bit, Chuck, but it was just because he was so bad in the slot.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like he played better outside, and I'm glad you bring this up, Chuck, too, because Chuck. Sorry about that. I'm glad you bring this up because that passer rating when targeted, Tim, that's grouping in the slot snaps as well as the
well.
So.
And I wonder if what you're saying, I think there's validity to that point, right? Like, did Keyshawn really play that well on the boundary, or did it just look that good compared to how he played in the slot? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And let's see here. Drew D says maybe Robinson or someone else off the radar can step up. That would be awesome if Micah Robinson.
That's what I was saying. I agree with Drew on that. Micah Robinson, Kalen King,
Kamal Hadden,
dude in the parking lot selling popcorn, somebody, whatever.
And
I think we're just so deep at safety that like corner doesn't worry me as much because I think that they're gonna rotate them. They're gonna move them around more than we think. I think that our safety room is actually kind of stacked, and then we're looking at it as all right. We have a top 3 on our corners. We'll figure out 4 or 5 maybe, but maybe we need to thin out corners so that we can carry one more player in on the 53. We can get around if these guys stay on the practice squad. Then we'll move them up. Still gonna have to get Christian off the pup. I feel like they knew that they were okay or they were happy with what they had, or else we wouldn't have been approaching Ja like that.
We talked about the possibility of 3 safety looks as well, where you've got X, you've got Williams, and you've got Bullard back there. And then maybe you're, mixing up your personnel at corner.
Yeah, Daryl in the chat says Valentine is a potential CB1. I really, man, he's either going to take another step forward or he's going to revert back to his rookie year. There's no staying the same in the league, in my opinion.
Right.
Taking a step forward means you stabilize. Like, all right, he's going to continue to play as well as he did last year. I'm with you there, Daryl. I would lean towards CB1, man. I would. And I know we got Nate Hobbs on the roster, but it's not like Nate Hobbs' tape is showing, hey, this dude is a cornerback 1. They didn't play him like a number 1, or they didn't pay him like a number 1 corner. I know that. So that would suggest he is a number 2 corner. Chris Casuin says, wow, Packers really thin outside cornerback when you go through it like this. I like doing these exercises. And again, this is why, I would rather have had Ja back.
Yeah.
Here's the reality. Jair is better than Keyshawn Nixon at corner. I feel comfortable saying Jair is a better corner than Carrington Valentine. I'm just simply pointing these numbers out. Like, the idea that they're way far apart is just simply untrue.
Right.
So that's why I was going to, why not guarantee him $10 million? Let's try it one more year. You save on $7 million. So you're essentially going to save $7 million against the cap if he does go out and get banged up, get hurt again, right? But if he stays healthy, imagine Carrington Valentine on one side and our boy Jair Alexander on the other, and then you got Nate Hobbs in the slot. That looks a lot better than what we've got right now. However, I can't say I agree with Goody's move. I just can't, man. And again, if it's true what Jair's dad said, that they would have been willing to stay for $6 million guaranteed and $8 million overall, you should have done that deal. You should have got that done. But who knows if it was that cut and dry too. I was hearing Wildy talk. I think it was on I can't remember, Jim, Matt, and Molly, I believe is the name of the show. And I heard Wildy talk about he never heard that there was a definitive offer on the table. So it could have been that they had talked about those numbers, but there wasn't an offer that was presented like, hey, here's this. And they turned, and the team turned it down like, no, we're not going to do that. But it was just more or less I'm kind of paraphrasing here from what he said. If I understood him correctly, and you guys go listen to it yourself, it sounded like Jair's camp knew they weren't offering that much by the way the talks kind of materialized. But I understand what you're saying, Chris. That's kind of how I feel there, man, too, it is a little thin outside. You're one injury away from going, oh, crap. But I think it was you that said it, Emilio. Maybe it was you, Tim. I can't remember. The fact that you got some all-pro level safety play behind you, that can really, really, really help. Really help.
The other thing I think we're not talking about, too, is, not that I'm in Brian Gutekunst's head or anything, but if you keep Ja and you do give him that offer and he does stay, we sign Nate Hobbs. Okay, well, when we go down to roster cuts, who are you kicking off this team, at the cornerback position? And is Ja going to be being on this roster going to be a progress stopper for some of your younger guys, especially considering the fact that you're holding a roster spot for him and you may not get him for more than half the season. These are variables that came into play, which is why I believe Goody pulled the trigger early in free agency and signed Nate Hobbs, because he knew there was a chance that, Ja might not be a Packer in 2025. And here we are. Ja's not a Packer. So this is the room we've got. And I'm excited for camp, man. These battles are going to be something for the ages. I'll tell you that.
Drew D says, I think Nixon is way better outside than in the slot. I completely agree with that thing. Completely agree with it. Mike Sandoval says, facts. I'm not a fan of Nixon in the slot, but I still think he's sloppy technique-wise. And I think part of that too, Mike, is like, wasn't he undrafted? He was an undrafted player, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
So I think he was signed as an undrafted free agent with the Raiders. I could be wrong there. So,
special team guy. Played his way on.
Exactly. Yep. Right. And he kind of played his way into the cornerback role and getting some playing time. So when you look at it from that perspective, maybe we're setting unrealistic expectations there. And again, we talked about Nate Hobbs getting paid good money, but not getting paid CB1 money. Hell, Keyshawn Nixon, he getting paid $6 million.
Right. Quick search says that he was drafted by the Raiders in the 5th round of the 21 draft. But even still, take that 5th round into account. What was Keyshawn drafted, and then Carrington was in the 7th round. Like, we have a lot of guys in the back end, corner wise, that just have something to prove. Kamal Haddon, unrestricted. Kalen King, 7th rounder. A lot of guys that kind of got the short end of the stick, ready to prove themselves.
So who was drafted in the 5th round? I may have misunderstood.
Hobbs was drafted in the 5th. I was just wondering, was Keyshawn? When was Keyshawn drafted?
I thought Keyshawn was undrafted. Somebody wants to help us out in the chat there. I think Keyshawn was undrafted. Or you guys just do a quick Google search. That's fine.
Let's see. They had him. No, I don't see it.
AFM says Mott roll coverages. I agree, AFM. That's kind of how you can counter that, right? Especially if you come out. And let's say Keyshawn's struggling on the outside and you're in your nickel and Nate Hobbs is playing good football in the slot and Carrington is just playing lights out. Roll the coverage to Keyshawn's side, right? And trust Carrington a little bit more. There you go, Drew. Thank you so much. He says undrafted. Yes. So that's what I was thinking.
We have 3 or 4 7th rounders, a 5th rounder, like undrafted guys. Yep. And then we have a first rounder at safety, a 2nd rounder at safety, a 3rd or 4th rounder at safety, and then another 4th or 5th rounder at safety. So it's like we have guys that want to prove themselves on the outside. I think absolutely. Yep.
$6 million. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it hurts a little bit. It hurts, and I'm probably going to get roasted for that, and I probably deserve it. Maybe I don't understand that, man. I don't understand it. I mean, like the $17 million, I get it. You can't, and like Goody said, you can't do it. And here's the other thing: like, according to Jair's dad, Matt LaFleur reached out to him, told him happy birthday, so they kept a good. It seemed like the coaches were on board with bringing it back. I think Hafley was on board with bringing it back. And at the same time, I feel like Hafley was a little bit irritated at times. I could be wrong there, but I don't know, man. I want to just be able to
at this level. It's a business, right? And I'm sure, things were probably good relationship wise, or the efforts were maybe made to reach out. But at the end of the day, the business side of things didn't line up and both parties had to move on.
Yeah. Judy says, I think Goot valued the roster spot more than Jair to let the young guys. We always talk about progress stoppers. So there you go. Right. That's a good point there, Drew. Chris the Casual, can Hobbs really play outside? Yeah, that's the question. I'll say this, Chris. What gives me hope is I'm going to tell you 2 men that I think can help him play outside if it's in him. And his rookie year, he played the slot and he played outside a little bit. And he played damn good football. He's kind of done that his whole career. When they're in the base, he would kick outside and then he'd come back to the slot.
Can I guess the names you're going to say?
Yeah, let's hear it, Tim.
Jeff Hafley and Derek Ansley.
Sir. Yes, sir. If anybody can get it out of him, it's them, Chris. So that's giving me some hope there, man. Because again, look at what they did with Carrington last year, right?
Yep.
Like look at what Jeff Hafley did with Carrington.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's any coincidence that Carrington looked like absolute cheeks the year before, and all of a sudden Jeff Hafley steps in and he's got a better passer rating when targeted than Jair did. I mean, that's kind of speaks for itself for sure. So, yeah. All right, let's see here. Greg Rice in the chat. We have a lot of slot corners. We do not have a lot of outside corners. I hope Melton is one. Yeah, I would love that. That would be great. I'm just not expecting. I think the whole Melton thing was they were light at corner that day, and that's not to say that Melton won't play corner.
Yeah.
If I were to just try to be positive here, Greg, and agree with what you're saying, there's no doubt in my mind when you seen the footwork drill that day at practice. Now, granted, it wasn't like we had all pros out there running with him. Bo had the best feet of any corner in that drill. I mean, that was really, really noticeable. So maybe he is, kind of waiting in the wings there. So.
Even if that's a spot for him to hold throughout camp to kind of keep him in the conversation for making the team, and then you get roster cuts, right? There could be some free agent corners that pop up into the mix that we could sign before the season starts. So, yeah, we don't know.
Fish says, I think the Packers had just moved on. They were only going to redo the contract to make it trade friendly, no guaranteed money. They were not going to spend another dime on Ja. And that's the other thing that got reported actually by Jair's father, Dead Fish. So I'm glad you brought that up. He said, we felt like the offer they gave us was just to put a deal in place so they could trade us. So it's a little bad pull there. You know what I mean? A little. Am I wrong in thinking like that's kind of dirty? Like it's, hey, yeah, let's redo this deal, and then you just ship them off. You know, like you're just trying to get that deal in place to do that. So I mean, it's business. It's business. Yep. So anyway, man, chat, you guys have been awesome tonight, dude. Thank y'all so much. Y'all carried us through that last segment there. And I just love that it's, like I said, it's June 20th. We're able to find topics like this to really I learned a lot tonight. I don't know about you guys, but like just kind of digging into the numbers and who really played well, who didn't, that type of thing. So I do want to give a shout out to the points leader of the night as we've got it tallied up here now, I believe. And it looks like Chris N. CJN, I believe it is. It's weird it shows a different name than what he's actually – it's got their actual name as opposed to what their call sign is. But anyway, Chris N, or CJN, I think it is, 225 XP. He's the winner of the night. Drew D came in second at 150, tied with Greg Rice, United Bates, Daryl, Chris the casual in. There's Chris N. That's somebody different there, not CJN. Clint Cosgrove, they all were tied for second at 150. So the winner of the night is CJN. So,
AFAM's mom coming in at third place tonight.
AFAM's mom is an interesting lady. She's an interesting looking young lady. I'm going to say young lady. There you go. Put it back up there, Tim. What kind of haircut is that anyway, by the way? How's that? That's a piece for sure, right?
It's got to be
that reverse mullet.
It is. That's a skullet, right? That's the
old it's a skullet, yeah.
It's a horsehair skull cap right there.
Greg Rice says, I beg to differ. She's smoking hot. There you go. Chris Coleman says Floridians. All right. Let's get out of here. This show sucks. Anything else, boys? Anything at all? We good?
I think that's it.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow for PTA Live, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Again, the best way to support what we do here, if you guys go, man, that show sucks, I feel sorry for them. I want to kick them a little bit of something. Patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. I want to say this too. I've gotten 3 different messages from people saying, hey, can we get the YouTube membership back and rolling and into the giveaways? We may bring that back because people are requesting it. Before it was, hey, the Patreon group as well as the YouTube memberships. And 2 of the people that reached out said, I like gifting the memberships, but since you're not doing it with the giveaways, I didn't want to, I know these are people that are in our Patreon group already. So we may bring that back just because there's some people that don't use Patreon. Although I would suggest if you want to support us, the best way to do it and get extra content and be a part of the community a little more embedded outside of just the YouTube live streams is definitely patreon.com/PackerFan.
Right, because it was just tracking them down was the issue on YouTube. Like you get the gifted membership to any random that's sitting in here watching it on. Like you could have given it to the Bears fan that was in here yesterday. You know what I mean? And then he wins the road, then he wins the spin, and then how do we track him down?
Right. And the other thing too, the reason we got away from it, I'm just explaining this for those people that were interested in asking about it, is when YouTube just randomly hit us with a copyright, we didn't know what it was, and they demonetized the channel, everyone who had a membership lost that membership all of a sudden until we got remonetized. With Patreon, it's a lot more stable in that regard. But I don't anticipate us getting in trouble with YouTube like that. Although I say that, but they're going, You need to figure out what you did, sir. Okay, we're not going to tell you. All right,
Mhm.
got it, sir. All right, so United Base says it sucks. YouTube membership is completely random. It says it will go to the people who interact in the chat the most, but never seems the case. Yeah, completely agree, Base. Completely agree. So, all right, that's it. Tim, Emilio, appreciate you guys. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all so much. Everybody in the Patreon group, appreciate y'all. We'll be back tomorrow. Again, we're going to do our giveaway this weekend. Anybody who's a member of the $3 tier is going to get an awesome Luke Musgrave autograph rookie card. Really cool piece of memorabilia.
Oh, baby.
Anyone
Oh,
other
baby.
than Emilio. If Emilio gets it,
I'm taking that baby home.
nope, we're going to donate it to
Taking that baby home and trading it for a Travis Glover rookie.
You think I could? What's
Yeah.
the conversion on that?
The conversion is you could get 5 Travis Glover. You could trade this autographed Luke Musgrave card
Uh-huh.
for 5 Travis Glover autographed jerseys.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt that. Maybe I could get an autograph helmet from my boy.
It's hilarious. We went to the Tennessee Titans game and there was somebody with a Travis Glover.
Dude, I'm so mad that I didn't.
Look,
Dude,
carrying
my
2
man.
bananas, eating bananas on the way to the stadium. Look, Travis Glover. Shut up, Emilio.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, Tim. Could be